let's move to the third project output, which is the art exhibit. So I would like to introduce Fenna Milbauer, who is the junior researcher at the Hague University of Applied Sciences. She works on inclusive education, and her background is in human rights, policymaking, and storytelling. And for Changing the Story project, she's coordinating the art exhibition. So Fenna, please.
Hi, thank you. I'm going to share my screen with our presentation. And today I'm also joined with Timo, a colleague. So as mentioned, my name is Fenna Milbauer, and I'm joined today by Timo. And together we're working on the art exhibition, and we want to just talk a little bit about that, but also about the summer schools and the zines, which are at the foundation of this project. So I wanted to start by talking a bit about the central aim, which is the main output of this project. It includes both the online courses, the documentary, and finally the art exhibition, which is what we're working on. And the main aim is that everyone should be able to experience education in an inclusive way and be inspired to foster new ideas of what inclusive education can look like. And each output is unique in its focus, yet we're all working towards creating this safe space within education where no one has to compromise who they
are. When going to the summer schools, these three different trips showed inclusivity and exclusivity in different contexts through experiences of institutions and stories of individuals. And we used art to reflect and express our different thoughts and experiences through different mediums of what we learned throughout these trips. And our first trip was in The Hague, so Fenna can elaborate a bit more.
I was a part of organizing this trip, so I just wanted to talk a little bit about what we experienced during that time period. Like all of the other summer schools, it took place over the course of a week. And throughout that week, we also focused on a lot of different art projects, including poetry, but also drawing, painting, and storytelling. We had a photography workshop, which you can see on the bottom right-hand corner. And this was something that we also carried through the entire week, really focused on examining what inclusive education looked like within the Dutch context and how each of the participants experienced this. We also had a day focused on undocumented students in the Netherlands. We visited an organization in Rotterdam, and we really got the chance to have dialogue with students who are structurally excluded from the Dutch education system. We also visited Amsterdam, where we had the chance to talk about LGBTQI+ issues in the city, alongside visiting the Belmer neighborhood, where we got to hear stories of people in that neighborhood. And we finished off by having lots of different discussions about our experiences as a whole within the Dutch context. And because this was one of the first trips, one of the first things that we had done within the project, we really focused on having discussions about what the definition of inclusion was for our group and what the definition of education was for our group. And this is something that we then carried through the rest of the summer schools, as well as in the art project, art exhibition, the documentary, and the online course.
In the Pilsen context, we learned about how good the school was at creating access to different able people through, for example, therapy, showing and destigmatizing the recognition of mental health. We learned about the exclusivity of the large Roma population within Pilsen, not really accessing art within the university. And this really showed us that through different organizations, what they are doing and what they're trying to really give this excluded group more access to education and housing. We learned about structural exclusion, for example, through debt collecting, which really put this group at a disadvantage. Afterwards, we went to a gallery showing the different ways that people tell their story through art in the Pilsen context. And the next day we went to Prague, and in this city we got a unique opportunity to see the city through the lens of someone who doesn't have a house, and how they experience this, where they slept, what they did to get by. Yeah, this was all very interesting, and to kind of collect all these ideas, we created a mural, as we can see in the top right and bottom right pictures. We did it in groups, and it was kind of like a reflection on what we learned that week. As I touched on earlier, kind of reflecting and expressing what we learned throughout the summer school. Yeah, and what was most notable is how the kind of the diversity within the definition of inclusion through each individual throughout summer school.
I'm sorry, Fenna, there is some noise from your talk. You can mute your mic when Timo's speaking. Thank you.
I hope this is better. Hopefully everyone could hear what we said. This was, yeah, the Pilsen context was a really interesting trip. And next we went to Bratislava and Nitra. If the slide can be changed. Yeah. In Nitra, it also became apparent that accessibility for disabled people was high on their agenda. Giving options for braille for blind people to read, and the possibility of having sign language translation in each class, really showing how they are able to implement their accessibilities for disabled people in very structural ways, which is very interesting. After seeing how the university does inclusivity, they also showed some of the still struggles that they experience. And we went to a very far out excluded village, or it's still part of the city, where Roma people lived, showing also here the struggle that they have to participate in education. It was a very interesting experience. It was on the right here, where after we went to an Indian Christian brotherhood, where they taught us about storytelling and how they tell their unique story of being Christian brotherhood in Pilsen, in Nitra, sorry. We learned a lot there, and the next day we went to Bratislava, where we touched on a different group. This was the LGBTQI+ group. Bratislava is the capital. And we specifically went to a cafe where sadly there was an attack on 2 members of the community, which you can definitely still see the hardship that was prevailing there, but also the strength that they had to continue telling their story and showing what they showcasing who they are, basically. And it taught us what it showed us a little bit what it's like to be queer in specifically Bratislava, but also a little bit the national context. And then by the end of the week, to reflect on this, we split up into groups, and we used one of their unique things where they had a lot of access to sign language. So we made a song, a sign language song, reflecting and expressing what we learned throughout the week. And one of the things that I still remember from it was love beats hate. It was a really fun thing. We showcased it throughout the university. We also made little zines throughout all these different summer schools, and Fenna is going to touch up a little bit more about that.
Thank you, Timo. So as mentioned earlier, the artwork that was created during each of the summer schools and the experiences that we had during the summer schools was summarized within a zine. So there's 3, 1 for each summer school. And if you're interested in reading them or seeing the artwork that's within them, you can find all of them on our website. I just wanted to start by showing the zines in each of the countries. So we start with the zine from the Hague context, during which students created mind maps that were focused on inclusivity in education, as I mentioned earlier. They created poetry and drawings to symbolize their experiences within education, reflecting both on positive experiences that they had had, but also negative experiences. And you can see examples of this on the screen. And students were also given this photography assignment, as I spoke about earlier. And we really gave them this to explore what their experiences were during their visit and exploring how inclusivity was shown within the Dutch context. And in Pilsen, students created journals for themselves, which you can see on the right-hand corner. And within each of these uniquely designed booklets, students reflected every day, exploring what experiences stood out, and if their views on inclusivity were influenced by the experiences and activities that we had throughout the week, as Timo went over. And students also worked on the murals, as we saw in the presentation earlier, which was really a good way to create a visual representation of what inclusivity meant to each of the groups. And if you want to see the murals, they're all showcased within the zine. And in Nitra, students worked on a variety of different projects. Some of them were individual and some of them were also collaborative. So we created paintings which were centered around the silhouette of each of the students, which you can see in the middle. And as Timo also mentioned, we made the sign language song, so you can see some of the lyrics that we wrote out and how we kind of worked as a group to make that come together. And all of the art that was created over the course of the project, primarily during these summer schools, is really what the art exhibition is built on. Which is also why these zines are so important, because they kind of showcase how we translate what happened during the summer school to the exhibition and how we then expand. I'm going to give the word back to Timo.
Yeah, and as we learned throughout these summer schools, throughout these experiences, we learned that storytelling is at the core of not only the exhibition, but the project as a whole. We realized that words can sometimes fall short. And art can be can bridge the gap to properly express and tell this story. As said by Fenna, the zines created can also be seen in the exposition. We hope to see all of you guys there. But yeah, storytelling is a unique trait and aspect of us as a humanity. It allows us to build societies, create myths about our origins, and imagine the future. Sadly, sometimes these stories are also a dividing factor, dividing us into us and them. And stories are not only negative, of course, they can also be used as an analytic tool to approach personal, local, and national context, and can be used to bring us together. Yeah, fostering ideas of inclusivity. And we aim to use art as a means to change not only our story of education, but everyone's story of education together, within and through education. And ask the central question, as we can see at the bottom of the slide, how can we, like I said earlier, change our story and yeah, in and through education. Next slide. And yeah, what we learned throughout the summer school furthermore was that it's very important to recognize each and everyone's story, because when we touched on all the different students, a common theme, a common thread that we found was that students often feel unheard or unseen. But in order to tell a complete story, all the characters must be seen and heard. So this is a very important question for us to fill in for the exposition. And from these findings, from these central questions and ideas that were created throughout the experience, we designed 3 core principles. We depart from lived experiences to see where boundaries lie. For example, sexism, racism, classism, ableism. But also it's important to see how inclusivity already and can manifest itself by students, teachers, or anyone in and around education. And yeah, last but not least, probably very important, we want to showcase this and make visible what these new possibilities are that arise from these questions, and together see what we can do to create a more inclusive environment.
And we just wanted to talk about some general points about the exhibition, since that's what Timo and I are working on. The exhibition is going to be showcased in each of the member countries. So it's starting in Pilsen, and alongside this conference, the first kind of sneak peek of the exhibition is already being held. And in April, the exhibition is going to move to The Hague, and in May, it will take place in Nitra in Slovakia. And as previously mentioned, the art in the exhibition is really based on this foundation of art that was created by participants in the project itself. So think about all the art that was created during the summer schools. And the exhibition also includes a number of pieces from student artists, as well as local artists. And we specifically do this in order to showcase issues, problems, experiences that take place within the individual context. So the exhibition is going to look a little bit different everywhere you go. And we specifically do this because no two countries are alike. No two countries have exactly the same set of issues. And each of our contexts are very unique. And we want to make sure that the art exhibition is also a reflection of this, which is why we work with students from the community itself. And lastly, we also will have a community art piece. And this is something that's going to be created during the exhibition. And it's really focused on co-collaboration, co-creation, and engaging with the visitors that come to the exhibition. So we really don't want people to just come and look around, but we also want people to be thinking with us about what the vision of inclusive education can be, how we can change the narrative, and allowing people to really think with us on how to do this. And the focus of the exhibition is, as I mentioned before, is really to create that experience for visitors to explore the various narratives of what inclusivity is and how that manifests into our individual contexts. And we really want to explore both inclusive elements of our current system, as well as how these systems can also be exclusive. And then we want to also look at how we can make education more inclusive. So really thinking outside of the box, thinking outside of the current narrative, and changing our story. And a common theme within this project is really creating that space for people to interpret and explore their own realities. So with the collaborative art piece, for example, we want everyone to be sharing stories of their own experience, whether that be within education or within general civil society. And as I mentioned before, the exhibition is already taking place in Pilsen. This is a little sneak peek that's mostly focused on the outputs from each of the summer schools. And our colleague Clara, who is organizing this on the ground, kindly shared some pictures with us. So I just wanted to show that to you. On the left-hand side here, you can see some of the examples of art that was created while we were in Nitra. So you can see some of the silhouettes. I actually think, Timo, your art is in this, if I'm not mistaken. And on the right-hand side, we see some pictures from both of the summer schools. And you can see that here as well. So we have some of the journals that we created on the bottom right-hand corner, and as well as some artwork that's created by students involved in the project, which you can see on the left. And we really want to invite everyone to think about the possibilities of inclusive education within your own context. I've said it multiple times now already, but we're going to have this collaborative art piece. So we really invite you to come to the exhibition, get involved. Don't just look at everything, but really think about what you're experiencing and then share that with us. And here are all the dates for the exhibitions in the various countries. So yeah, thank you, and we hope to see you there.